Do you ever feel like God doesn't hear you, or you've been praying for something for a really long time and it seems to just change nothing? I think that we have all experienced this from time to time. I once had a client tell me that God always answers our prayers and that his answer is either yes, no, or maybe later. So today we're going to explore some of the ways that God does answer our prayers. Sometimes when we pray, our answered prayer will actually propel us to exercise our faith. So, I'm going to tell you guys a story where I got a definite yes from God as far as an answered prayer. However, it did cause me to exercise my faith. So, this is during a time when I lived with my mom. I was a single mom. I had went through breast cancer, divorce, went through all of this healing. And at this point, I am ready to have my own space and just be in my own home with my two kids. During this time, I was getting denied from every place I applied for. You had to prove that you made 3 times the income, and I was just not able to do that. So I say a prayer to God and I asked God for specific things. I actually did write out this prayer. So the prayer that I asked was that He would give us a 3-bedroom house so each of us could have a bedroom with a yard, and it be 1,600 or under, and that it was in one of 2 specific areas. So the night that I pray this to God, I actually went on Zillow like I do during this time, like I would do every night. And there was a house with all of those things that I had listed. And it wasn't 1,600, it was 1,595 that it was going for. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, is this my house? And I apply for it. The next day, the property management calls me and they say that I'm 6th in line. And I remember going on 2 weeks later, I was telling my brother-in-law that I really felt like I was going to get this house. I just had a lot of faith that God was going to come through for me. And my brother-in-law is like, Lisa, you're 6th in line. You're not going to get this house. And I was like, I really feel like God's going to give me this house. So he gets in my head. I actually did feel really discouraged, but I was like, nope. Like, hold on to your faith. And then 5 weeks goes by and they take it off the listing. Now I'm really discouraged. I apply for another house. I get denied. And I'm just, my faith was really, really tested. But it was like, it's okay. Like, whatever God's will is, God's going to come through. Even if it's not this house, God will come through. This was how I was kind of just looking at things. So 7 weeks goes by, and after feeling a lot of sadness and disappointment, it was like waves of emotion. I got myself together. I remember I had left the gym this one day, and the property management calls me, and she's asking if I'm still interested in that house. And I'm like, yes. And she says, okay, let me call the landlord. She says, just to check if he would like to rent to you. So she calls me back, and her tone was extremely frantic when she called me. So that's just a little side note, and I'll tell you why I'm telling you that in a minute. So she says, the landlord would love to rent to you. When can you come sign papers? And I'm like, tomorrow. And so she's like, all right. So the next day I sign papers and I move in within the next 2 weeks. They did not show me the house. There was no showing of it. I saw the house online and I just felt like this was my house. So I wasn't even concerned with what it looked like other than what I saw on, the ads, the internet. Anyways, so here's what happened. Whomever they were going to rent the house to fell through. So everybody else underneath that person they had already found their places. So the landlord, who lived in a different state, gets upset because his house is going unrented past a month. And so he yells at the property management. I'm not sure what he said, but he's saying, you know, what do you think I'm paying you guys for? This needs to be rented. So whatever his choice words were propels this lady. She's going down the list. I'm the one left, first in line. And so she's like, are you still interested? They bypass all procedures because he's mad. And so they bypassed checking to see if I made 3 times the rent, the income. And I didn't. I still didn't make that. But God made that all possible so I could move in. And that's how I got my house. That was my answered prayer. That was my yes. However, it required so much faith to get there. I mean, my emotions were all over the place, and I kept having to remind myself to just have faith in God, that God has this, that I don't have to worry about this. So I think sometimes we have to remember that when we pray for something, it might not always look straight away like that prayer is being answered, but God has a bigger plan, and he had to orchestrate these different things with timing so that they didn't check my income. And so just remember that when you're praying for something, that he really does know what he's doing. So what about when God tells us no? I think it's important to know that God knows everything and can see well beyond the moment that we're in right now. I had gotten a no, and I'm going to tell you this story. So this story was, it took place when I first became a Christian, and I was watching all of these videos on YouTube on fasting and prayer. And I watched this one video where this girl, she had prayed for her husband. And, you know, she's telling this story where she was a nurse, and during her nursing shift, I think she said it started at 7 and then ended, I don't know, 7, maybe 7. I think it was a 12-hour shift, and she wouldn't eat at all during that. And she was going to do this until God gave her her husband, and she would focus on prayer in the middle of at lunchtime. She said she would go to the chapel at the hospital and pray. Anyways, and so she gets her husband this way. And so I come from this background of New Ageism, and I did all of these forms of divination, tarot card readings, and they would always lead me to a path of suffering. And so, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I asked about love in that, and it would lead me just to more and more suffering. So it's like, all right, God, now I've surrendered to you. So let's get our husband. So I decide to do this, and I'm going to do this 3-day fast. Okay. And so, but I was going to do it kind of like this girl where because I work out in the morning. So I was going to work out, eat, and then past 11 o'clock, not eat anything else until the next day. So I do this, and I'm praying for my husband. So the very first day I go to the gym, and this guy approaches me, and he's like, hey, can I get your number and take you out to coffee? I'm like, I have not even starved yet. Yes, you can take my number. And so in the guy, I found him attractive. So I was like, all right, Jesus, let's do this. So this is the first day, right? And I'm feeling good. And I fasted for these 3 days, and the date would be on the 4th day. So I meet this guy at the coffee shop, okay? And I see him go in, and I go in after him, And I'm like, hi. And, I give him a hug. And he's like, I'm waiting for him to take the lead. And he's like, I already ordered my tea. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I will say, I know not everybody is like this. That was really, it was a real turnoff to me, like that he wouldn't have bought my coffee. So so I go up to the counter and I buy my coffee and he's standing right next to me as I'm like getting my money out of my purse. And yeah, I don't know. I love a nice gentleman, and I don't know, it's coffee. I don't know. I just thought that it was to ask a girl out for coffee and then not pay. I don't know. It just was ugh. So anyways, so I'm feeling like a little icky, and I'm like, what is this? This is not what I expected. So then we go and we sit outside and we're just talking, and he's like completely, I'm wanting a man of God, right? I'm a Christian. And he was like, he told me that he believed in the laws of the universe. He was telling me there's this experience where he had a demon scratch his face. I'm not kidding you. This is really happening. And I'm like, what? Like, he was into tarot readings, everything that I was no longer even entertaining, completely like, no. And I'm like, what the heck? So anyways, this was my no. Like, I am telling you, when the time is right for certain things, God will bring it, he will bring it to you. And I really learned this. It was like such a dramatic no from God. Like, it was like, honey, I mean, no need to starve because this one I'm not giving you. Like, it's not happening. And so yeah, so now I practice faith and just trusting the will of God. That's not even a thing. As far as my love life goes, it's all with the will of God. And sometimes I definitely feel temptation and but what about him? And God is usually like, no, girl, no. So keep the faith. When he says no, there's a reason. One thing that we need to understand is that when we follow God, he will meet our needs according to his plan. So today I want to look at Genesis chapter 7, verses 18 and 19, and then we're going to talk about it. And Abraham said unto God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee." Here Abraham is praying for Ishmael and that God would have favor over him. Now let's look at verse 19. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant, and with his seed after him. So here we see that God's plan is not completely in alignment with what Abraham is asking for. So Abraham is asking for God to establish a covenant with Ishmael. And if you're not familiar with this story, Ishmael is Abraham and Hagar's son. Hagar is the handmaiden of Abraham's wife, Sarah. Okay, so God had made a promise to Abraham 11 years prior to Hagar birthing Ishmael, and that he would have a son. Sarah, his wife, discovers that she is barren, And so she decides to meddle and help God out with his plan by encouraging Abraham to sleep with Hagar. This causes a big ol' mess. Hagar resents Sarah. Sarah actually mistreats Hagar. It definitely seems like there's a lot of hurt. I mean, from Abraham sleeping with Hagar, it creates just this big mess. As with any sin, there's always drawbacks, and so this one's no different. And it could have all been avoided had they not meddled and tried to help God out with his plan. So let's continue on and look at this one more verse. This will be verse 20 in Genesis. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. So here we see that God still took care of Ishmael, but in a different way than Abraham expected. We have to realize that God has a plan, no matter if we're clear on the answer or not. And we just really need to practice that trust and that faith. I know it can be so hard. I experience this all the time. It's truly my life story with God. I'm always trying to take myself back to a place of faith. I can get impatient quite often. So, just keep the faith, trust in God's will. He truly does know what he's doing. If you like this video, I ask that you please click the little like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly, truly does help me out. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and God bless.